some of the biggest American singers and musicians of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, including this guy right here, Michael Jackson, came together on one night to create a pop masterpiece. We Are the World. Let's talk about Netflix's The Greatest Night in Pop. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my movie review for the new Netflix documentary, The Greatest Night in Pop. This is dissecting We Are the World, how it came about, the session itself, the whole thing, and it's told by a lot of the people that were there, including Lionel Richie, Cyndi Lauper, and Bruce Springsteen. Before we launch into the specifics of this movie, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do movie and TV reviews here on the channel, and there's always something new to check out. I post something just about every day, and in the last few months, I've posted actually several videos about celebrity documentaries. So if you like this one, you may want to check out some of my other videos. I covered the Wham documentary last year on Netflix, the Albert Brooks one from HBO Max. There's been a bunch of celebrity docs lately, so I'll post the links to those in the description below. But for now, we have the first great documentary of 2024, The Greatest Night in Pop. So this was directed by, I always like to talk about the directors when we do documentaries, because sometimes some are known more than others, but this was directed by Bao Nguyen, who is best known for a documentary called Be Water, which I am unfamiliar with, but he also did one about Julian Lennon. He's worked with the ESPN 30 for 30 people, so he's obviously got a foot in the documentary door there. But all right, so We Are the World. Let's talk about my history just for a second with the song. So it came out really before I was listening to a lot of pop music. I was still listening to my parents' 60s records at the time, Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, the Monkees, a lot of that stuff. But you would have to have been dead to not have known about Thriller or We Are the World, both Michael Jackson projects. And I was probably about 8 when this came out. So yeah, still a little young, but I mean, it was everywhere. And at the time, it was one of the biggest selling singles of all time, which they talk about, sort of in the footnotes, at the end of the documentary. I believe at the time it was the 5th highest selling record ever. Bing Crosby's White Christmas is #1, but that sells every year, so it's hard to compete with that. But basically, this documentary goes through the formation, the idea of We Are the World, because it was shortly after Bob Geldof put together Do They Know It's Christmas over in the UK, and that was with some of the top UK artists of the time, including, Sting and Bono and a lot of these really hot acts. So We Are the World was sort of a brainchild of something I didn't know, Harry Belafonte, who, of course, famous singer from the 50s and 60s, Day-O, huge song, Jump in the Line. But I didn't realize he actually was sort of the brainchild behind this. And so they talk about that and how he wanted to bring a spotlight on Africa and, people dying of starvation there and all of their, illnesses and everything. And so he sort of had transitioned a long time before this from a singer into, a philanthropist. And so he kind of had this idea, but, he's successful and he's famous, but he's not Michael Jackson. He's not Quincy Jones. So how do we get all these people involved? So Lionel Richie got involved through, I guess, Quincy Jones, if I'm remembering that right. And he was hosting the American Music Awards that year, because part of the problem was, well, okay, we can get maybe some people, but how do we get them all in the same place at the same time? They had talked about maybe doing different, studios around the country, and they were like, no, this needs to be like one group of people singing together. And so they realized that they could do that the night of the American Music Awards, because a lot of people would already be in town. So they rented out some space at AM Studios, and Lionel Richie and some of the other people got on the phone, and he called Michael Jackson, who he had known for a long time, and tells a great story about him growing up. And the two of them kind of sat down to figure out the song and everything. And then from there, it kind of spread like wildfire, and we involved all these people. Anyway, so that's like the first half of the documentary is like how we get these people involved, who says no, who's our wish list, whatever. And then the back half is about the recording itself, which was one night only. It went into the wee hours of the morning. They didn't finish till after 6 a.m. And coordinating all of those different singers and who's going to solo and what line and all of this. And so not only some of the singers involved are a part of this. I mentioned, Lionel and Cyndi Lauper, Bruce Springsteen, Dionne Warwick is part of this, but a lot of the people behind the scenes as well. One of the lighting guys is talked to. One of the I don't know what you call him, the coordinator though of like who's going to sing what line, and he goes through his process of like listening to everybody's records and seeing who lines up, and watching it, you cannot help but just marvel at, oh my God, like these really are the greatest American singers of all time. I mean, you go back to, Tina Turner is a part of this, and Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles, and, up to the present day, which you have some of the hot new singers that only maybe had one or two albums, and we didn't know, okay, are these guys going to stand the test of time? But like Huey Lewis and Cyndi Lauper, and some of the most memorable parts of that song. And then you have a bunch of kind of random people in the background. Dan Aykroyd is here, which I wish, one of my little negatives about this is I wish they explained a little bit more about Dan Aykroyd. I know he did the Blues Brothers, 5 years before this or whatever, but like he's not a singer really. And I guess, yeah, he was in town. But the one lady reads off like her wish list. Steve's like, oh, yeah, like I really wanted Madonna there, and I wanted this person and this person, and Dan Aykroyd I wanted there. It's like, okay. I mean, Ghostbusters was hot, I guess, at the time. And it's kind of funny because they redid We Are the World. This is kind of an aside from the movie, but they did like a 25th anniversary of We Are the World for Haiti about 10 years ago, and I think Wyclef had put that together, whatever. But Vince Vaughn was in that, and I just thought, that must be a throwback to like, okay, there's Dan Aykroyd. Let's put some random actor in the new one that isn't known really for singing. And so Vince Vaughn's in that, but whatever. But it was just fascinating as a music, lover, and certainly 80s music, I was just in awe of like how they pulled this off, and we have little moments of like levity where something maybe doesn't seem to be going right, and then somebody will say something or do something that sort of breaks the tension, and a couple people had left along the way because they didn't feel like they were being represented enough, and Stevie Wonder had an idea to start doing Swahili, and everybody was like, what, they don't even speak that in Africa, like what are we doing? And so it really is a miracle that this song not only got pulled off but is amazing. I mean, I watched this 3-4 days ago. I've watched the whole video on YouTube a few times. I've rewatched a couple parts of this documentary since then. The song has been in my head. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. I think if the song was bad, it wouldn't have mattered so much that you had all this talent in one room. But it is interesting that there's a few people involved that are still alive. Obviously they can't interview Michael Jackson for this or, Ray Charles, but, Stevie Wonder's still with us. Quincy Jones, who was the mastermind, the producer here, he is not involved in this documentary. And obviously, there's a lot of singers that were in the room that don't get talked to. We don't talk to Steve Perry of Journey. We don't talk to Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac, whatever. I didn't think we would talk to Bob Dylan. He's very reclusive, but it was interesting seeing him do his part. But it's interesting to me, like, I wonder why some of those people didn't want to be involved, because I'm sure they reached out. So you're getting the meat and potatoes of the making of We Are the World, and the organization of it, really to Lionel Richie, because the other people involved in this documentary, Bruce Springsteen, Cyndi Lauper, they weren't part of that. They were part of the song, but everything leading up to that is really through Lionel Richie's eyes. It would have been interesting, I think, to have maybe one or two other perspectives about how that came about, But look, this is a great documentary. It's a lot of fun. And it's one of these things where it's like, okay, the Wham documentary, yeah, I enjoyed it. I was a huge George Michael fan. But this, everybody knew We Are the World. Everybody bought the record at the time. Everybody knows the song if you're probably maybe 30 or older. Even if you weren't born yet, but you were like maybe an early 90s baby. We Are the World, I think. And so it's one of those things where it is interesting just to see how it all comes together because it is something that everybody knows. It's like that Michael Jordan documentary. Like, I don't care about sports, but when they did The Last Dance, like, I watched it. You know, I remember the 96 Bulls and the 92 Bulls and all that stuff. So this is kind of like that. I think even if you are not necessarily a music fan, you know We Are the World. And you know all of these big names, and it's very, very interesting to see how it all came together. I give The Greatest Night in Pop an A minus, and you can check this out now on Netflix, and then go. You know, I'll link the USA for Africa YouTube video as well. Then you can watch the full video for We Are the World after you watch the documentary as well. So, all right, thank you for watching Dan Reviews It. We'll see you next time.